Hello, everybody. Welcome to an Osceola sit-down conversation with a man that needs no introduction, Coach Mickey Andrews. Coach, first off, thanks for joining us. We kind of wanted to visit with Coach Andrews about what he's seen from Coach Mike Norvell and his football program over the course of the last 3 months, and of course, ask Coach some questions about how to move forward with the program with the limitations put on practice, with practice being canceled, what impacts that has on the program, and maybe what some of the things that the ACC, the NCAA, and the football coaches and athletic directors can do to maybe help these programs move forward despite the restrictions. Coach, first question for you. What were your thoughts of what Coach Norvell and the staff had done prior to the start of spring practice? You had been to the tour of duties, you've been around the program, and been around the coaches some. What are your first impressions of the staff?
Well, you know, Pat, to me, one of the most important phases of your football program is what happens in the off season. And I'm not talking about recruiting, even though that is very important, but I'm talking about working with your own team. And you know, I've been super impressed being around Norvell, being around his staff. I've gotten to know most of them pretty well. And what I see is a situation where you got a group of people that are determined to change or to rechange the culture that's existing at Florida State at this time. And when I say that, I look back at the success that we had, you know, with Coach Bowden. We used to call it the mat workout, or off-season work, and they call it the tour of duty. You know, it don't matter what you call it, but your emphasis is so critical there because you get to work with kids in an environment where you can't develop fundamentals like blocking and tackling, which is the most important part of your whole criteria, whatever you're trying to do. You're training hearts, you're training minds, you're training the things that are so important in football are the intangibles. How far will you go? How much will you give to your teammates? Will you be coachable? Will you let the coaches strain you when you think, you know, maybe it's kind of like they talk about hitting a wall in pyramids. I never experienced that and I won't. But you're going to face that situation time and time again. And if you give in to being tired, you'll give in to losing. And like I said, those intangibles, being disciplined, of learning how to perform trying to get to be the very best you can be, that's critical. And if you accomplish that, then you could go into spring training and you work on football. You work on fundamentals. And you can coach and teach technique instead of still having to drive and getting them to perform at the level you want to. You know, team is a 4-letter word, but it takes a bunch of I's and me's to develop that team. And if you can't count, if your team can't count on you, can't count on me, you got a lot of problems. And so what I saw them work twice. I think they worked 12 days. Saw them early in the season, and then I saw them, and I think it was like the next to the last day that they worked. I saw a lot of progress. I saw developing habits that will allow you to win. Saw a lot of things that were still old habits that they were selfish with. Players were selfish rather than getting to that point and saying, you guys can count on me, I'll be there. I'll do my part. There's still some old habits that, you know, last 3 years we've been practicing losing habits. Because everything you do is a habit. That's just the way life is. I don't care what area it is. And the main thing that you got to do is you got to get enough individuals that will buy into it. And you get to the point where you don't want the coaches to be all the leadership. You want it to be passed on to the players. And once you get that, then you know you got more opportunities to experience winning. And that's just a thing that. And like I said, going into spring practice, they had 12 opportunities. A lot of your initial part is learning what to do, how to do it, with what intensity, and the discipline of doing it right time after time after time. That's how you get better.
Now, you mentioned that you had seen 2 tour duty workouts,
Yeah.
and you mentioned the fact that there has to be a buy-in at the players, that the coaches can obviously start building the culture and demand what they want on a daily basis, but if the players don't buy in, it doesn't mean anything. Did you see any leadership, any individual players, and you don't have to name them, but did you see the leadership buy-in from the players?
I did, and it's just like we got going with the coronavirus. You don't get it if you're not in contact with it, somebody that has it. Well, it's the same way here. Till you get enough individual people, players, that will be an asset to the coach, you're not going to get what you want. You may get a piece of it, you may get part of it. But what I saw, and then I went out to practice on the 3rd day. They were in shorts 2 days, and of course I didn't go out there on purpose the first 2 days. You don't play in shorts, but the first day in pads, I saw kids responding, trying to do the things that they were told to do by the coaches. I saw individuals reaching down, and I saw people trying to help each other. And it was a very positive day. There was some teaching, there was learning, there were kids training, but then you'd find a few individuals that have developed bad habits like loafing. You know, a football play, I've always told, lasts about 4 to 6 seconds. And when you break that down into 70 or 80 plays, Pat, you or Jerry will have to help me with this because I wasn't a math major, but
well, I got about 280 seconds. I don't know.
Well, maybe that total time, those 4 seconds from the start of the play through the finish. You know, Coach Biden, some people accuse us of playing dirty and hitting late and all that kind of stuff. And Coach Biden's response was that we play through the whistle. No, through the echo of the whistle.
I can still hear that in the back of my mind from being in practice when you guys were coaching there.
If you're listening for the whistle, you probably ain't gonna do much damage when you get there. You don't create bruises on the guy that's got the ball if you stop on the whistle. If you're looking for that, you know, you can tell when the play's over.
Right.
And we always wanted the officials to have their hand in the pocket trying to decide, was that late or was it legal?
Right.
We impeached. We had nothing in our drills, tackling drills, that would indicate that we hit late. We never encouraged it. But don't pass up the start of the whistle to the end of the whistle to decide when you pull off. That may not be a good way to say it, but that's the way we did it. At least we got old Steve riled up a few times.
Well, Coach, you mentioned that you'd been to the 3rd practice, and obviously Jerry, myself, and Bob have been to all 3. One of the things, you know, we're comparing and contrasting from what we've seen the last 2 years. There's a reason there was a coaching change, and one of the things that stood out to me in the 3 days I've been out there is the intensity level of the coaches, and they are extremely fanatical about detail. What have you noticed from the last staff to this staff as far as the intensity and the style of coaching, and what has impressed you?
And the organization.
Yeah, and the organization. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't really need to talk about the last one because they're not here, but I will be glad to talk about this. what I saw were guys that were teaching kids how to win. I saw it in the all-season program, the tour of duty, and I saw it in the first day in pads. Now, naturally, you're not going to be as sharp or as crisp in your technique because you hadn't yet, just like defensively, you hadn't put anybody on the ground yet. You've not learned that 4 to 6 seconds is not that's not going to occur till the play is dead. And I saw a few people, and some of them know who they were because I told them. You rushing the passer, and you get back there, and the ball is thrown downfield. That play's not over. For you, that might have been a 2-second play, but it was a 6-second play, and you should be sprinting, redirecting to the ball just as fast, if not faster, than when the ball was snapped. Well, that's a habit, you know, and it's harder for a big guy to do that. But you don't ever know when you're going to make a play downfield. You cause a fumble, you gain possession of the football. You don't know what's going to happen. Well, that's not a habit for all of them yet. And just like a DB, he's covering the receiver, the other side of the field. We used to tell him, if you don't get in that picture frame before it goes off, that's a loaf. You know, and we had little drills that we would do out to practice, discourage loafing. In fact, we wasn't going to play them. They didn't have an option. This is the way we're going to do it. And I saw some coaches and I saw some players trying to get that done.
I saw some consequences too.
Yeah.
I saw one situation where running back fumbled, sprinted over to the sidelines and started doing up downs.
Yeah.
So that changes behavior.
Yeah, one of the things I saw, they were going through individual, the offense skill positions, routes against air, where a receiver jumped off before this ball was snapped. They went ahead and ran the next play successfully, but when they got down there, every kid in that with that particular unit did 5 up downs. There were a lot of up downs being done yesterday after practice. I did notice that.
That makes no sense. One mistake, just not. It doesn't just penalize that guy; it penalizes the whole team. You know, so you're building not only winning attitude. I mean, what's 5 up downs? It's just the fact that you're holding them accountable to the team.
Right.
That's winning habit.
It's embarrassment.
It should be. You know,
well, Coach, you mentioned people finishing, playing through the whistle.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot. Practices have changed a lot since in the last 10, even 25 years, particularly with how they practice. You know, tackling specifically. Yeah. Yesterday in practice they were basically wrapping up. It wasn't even a thud. It was just basically tagging off. As a defensive coach, obviously you'd probably rather see them take them to the ground. How hard is it to get kids to learn how to finish when you have to coach like that? When you have to limit the number of days that you're doing full contact work, or you are taking people to the ground, and obviously I think there would be some challenges in teaching kids how to tackle.
Well, defensively, the play is not over till the ball's on the ground.
Right.
You're trying to teach them how to finish a drill, whatever. In tackling, you're going to have some injuries, either to the person tackling or the guy that was tackled. But what they're doing is saying getting to that point is the most critical stage right now. You know, and I was talking with Fuller the other day. You know, he said, I told him that at one time we had an offensive coordinator that didn't want us tackling the people in the spring other than 3 practice scrimmages. And I said, no, we can't do that because we're not getting to finish the tackle with 3 days. You can't teach tackling in 3 days. So what they're doing, even though they didn't have a lot of time where they say physically took them to the ground, the emphasis was whip your blocker, get to the ball at the proper angle, establish a tackling position without taking a chance on somebody getting hurt. And that's critical. And this is what I just struggle with all the time. The tackler is the one that decides where the ball carrier goes. And then it surprises the tackler that the back goes there. You eliminate, you give him one way to go. And now finish it.